Almost everything that goes wrong on a British doorstep goes wrong because of good manners. You were raised not to leave people standing outside, to offer tea, to apologise for the state of the place and wave somebody through to the front room. Those instincts are decent, they have served you well for 60 or 70 years, and there is exactly one situation in this country where they will cost you dearly. It is 9 o'clock at night. There are two police officers on your step, and neither of them is angry, and neither of them is accusing you of anything. One of them smiles and says, "Sorry to bother you this late. We've just come to check you're okay." And in that sentence, the kindest thing an officer will ever say to you is a doorway. Because it is not a question about your health. It is a request to come in wearing the clothes of concern. And it works precisely because refusing it doesn't feel like standing on your rights. It feels rude. It feels ungrateful towards two people who came out in the dark because somebody was worried about you. So you step back, half a pace, without ever deciding to, and in that second you hand away the single strongest legal protection you will ever hold. So over the next few minutes I want to hand you a single sentence. One calm, polite sentence that answers their concern honestly, keeps you entirely on the right side of the law, and does not let anybody through your front door who has no lawful power to be there. And I'll show you exactly what the law says about welfare visits, including one line from the law itself that almost nobody has heard, and that turns this whole conversation around. Stay with me to the end though, because the sentence is the easy half. The hard half is the second thing they say, the follow-up. 10 seconds later, once you have politely declined. That follow-up is what actually decides whether anyone ends up standing in your hallway, and it catches the people who were sure they knew exactly what they were doing. I'm Oliver Bennett. For 15 years, I defended people in police stations and courtrooms across England and Wales, and the doorstep is where I watched more ordinary, decent people lose their footing than anywhere else, because it is the one place where the law is completely on your side and your upbringing is completely against you. This isn't legal advice, it's the plain English version of what I wish every person in this country understood before somebody knocks. Let me start with why the threshold of your front door matters so much more than people realise. In English law, your home is not just where you live. It is the place where the state's powers are at their weakest, and yours are at their strongest. Out on the street, an officer can approach you, speak to you, and in the right circumstances search you. At your door, almost none of that applies. He is standing on one side of a line, and you are standing on the other. And unless he has a specific legal power or your permission, that line does not move. Which means the entire question, the whole thing, comes down to one word: consent. Not whether they were polite, not whether you had anything to hide, whether you invited them in. And here is what changes the moment you do. Anything in plain sight becomes something they have lawfully seen. The conversation stops being a doorstep chat and becomes an interview happening in your living room, on body-worn video, while you're in your slippers and off balance. And practically speaking, asking somebody to leave your home once they're settled in it is a great deal harder than not letting them in, because now you're the one being awkward, in your own house, in front of two people with notebooks. You have not been arrested, you have not been detained, you have simply, politely, given away the strongest position you will ever hold. Now, the law itself, because this is the part almost nobody has heard, and it is genuinely on your side. There is no such thing in law as a police power of entry for a welfare check. It does not exist. There is no section of any act that says an officer may come into your home because somebody rang up and said they were worried about you. That phrase is a description of why they've turned up. It is not a power. What they actually rely on, when they rely on anything, is Section 17 of the Police and Criminal Evidence Act 1984. Section 17 sets out the circumstances in which an officer may enter premises without a warrant, and the part that matters here is subsection 1, paragraph E, entry for the purpose of saving life or limb or preventing serious damage to property. Read those words carefully because they are not gentle words. Saving life or limb. That is emergency language. It is written for the moment an officer believes somebody behind that door is about to die or be seriously hurt. And here is the line I promised you, the one that changes the entire conversation. When the courts have looked at this power, they have been blunt about the threshold. Concern for someone's welfare is not sufficient to justify entry under that section. It is, in the words used, altogether too low a test. To rely on Section 17, an officer needs to believe there is an immediate risk of serious or life-threatening harm, not that they'd feel happier having a look round. So understand what that means for the sentence on your doorstep. "We've come to check you're okay" is a reason for the visit. It is not, by itself, a power to come in. And if you are standing in front of them, upright, speaking to them, visibly okay, the stated concern has already been answered by your own presence in the doorway. Now, I'm going to be straight with you, because I always am, and because this next part is not a technicality. If there genuinely is an emergency, they can come in, and they should. If an officer has real grounds to believe somebody inside is unconscious or being hurt or in immediate danger, Section 17 exists precisely so they don't have to stand outside filling in a form while it happens. They can enter, and Section 117 of the same Act allows them to use reasonable force to do it. I am not teaching you to obstruct a real welfare emergency, and if somebody in your house needs help, let them in and be glad they came. This video is about the enormous space between a genuine emergency and a polite request at a door, because that space is where almost every one of these visits actually lives. So let's talk about the 4 ways people give away the doorstep without ever intending to. The first is opening the door wide and stepping back. This is pure body language, and it happens before a word is spoken. You open up, you retreat a pace to make room, and you have physically invited 2 people into your hallway. In the account written up afterwards, that becomes, "The occupant opened the door and stepped aside, and we entered with consent." You never said yes. You didn't have to. The second is the vague middle answer. "I suppose so. If you have to. I don't mind." Every one of those is recorded as consent, because none of them is a refusal. The law here is binary. Either you consented or you didn't, and anything that isn't a clear no gets written down as a yes. The third is the one that costs the most, and it's the one that comes from being honest and a bit flustered. You start explaining. You tell them you've been unwell lately. You mention you live on your own now. You say you had a fall a few months back, or that you don't sleep well, or that your daughter worries too much. Every one of those sentences is offered to reassure them, and every one of them can be written down as a reason to be concerned about you. You have just built the case for entry yourself, out of nothing but politeness. And the fourth is the one nobody sees coming, telling them you're alone. It feels like a harmless answer to a harmless question, but is anybody else in with you is not small talk. If you say you're alone and unwell, you have described precisely the situation Section 17 is written for. So here is the sentence. It's short, it's warm, and it does 4 separate jobs at once. "I'm absolutely fine, thank you. I'm not inviting you in, but I'm happy to talk here at the door." Look at what that does. "I'm absolutely fine, thank you." You have answered the only question they actually asked. Their stated reason for being there was to check you were okay. You are visibly, audibly okay, and you've confirmed it. The purpose of the visit is now complete. Notice too that it's warm. You've thanked them, so nothing about this sounds like hostility. "I'm not inviting you in." Clear, unambiguous, and impossible to write up as anything else. Not, "I'd rather you didn't," which is a preference. Not, "Do you have to?" which is a question and invites an answer you won't like. A plain statement that there is no consent. That single clause is the whole legal spine of this video. But I'm happy to talk here at the door. This is the clause people want to leave off, and it's the one that protects you. It removes the only card they have left, which is the suggestion that you are being obstructive or that you must have something to hide. You are not refusing to engage, you are refusing entry. Those are very different things, and by saying so out loud, you make the difference obvious to everyone, including the body-worn camera that is almost certainly recording. And say it once, not 3 times, not with an explanation, and above all, not with an apology. You don't owe anyone a reason for not inviting them into your home at 9 o'clock at night. Now, the part I promised you at the start, the second thing they say. Because a properly declined doorstep visit almost never ends there. 10 seconds later comes the follow-up, and it is designed, whether the officer thinks of it this way or not, to make your position feel unreasonable. It usually takes one of 4 shapes. Is there anyone else in the house with you? You are not obliged to answer that. If you want to say something, "There's nobody here who needs any help," is complete, true, and closes the door on it. But you do not have to give a head count of your own home. We'll just come in and make sure, and then we'll be out of your way. Notice how that is phrased as a plan rather than a request. It presumes the yes. The answer is simply to repeat your line, unchanged and unembarrassed. I'm fine, thank you. I'm still not inviting you in. Why don't you want us to come in? This is the one that gets people, because it reframes a lawful choice as suspicious behaviour, and the human instinct is to defend yourself. Do not take it. You do not have to justify it, and any answer you give, the place is a mess, I've just got out of the bath, becomes a detail in a report. It's just my home, and I'd rather talk here, is more than enough. Are you refusing to let us in? That one sounds like a warning, and it is meant to. But refusing entry, where they have no power to enter, is not an offence. It is the ordinary exercise of a right that is older than the police force itself. I'm not refusing to help you, I'm just not inviting you in. Calm and finished. And here is what to listen for underneath all four, because this is the thing worth knowing more than any script. If an officer genuinely believed there was a life at risk on the other side of your door, he would not be negotiating with you on the step. He would already be inside. The negotiation itself is the tell. One quick thing before I get to that, because it's the reason this channel exists at all. Everything I cover here, the sentences, the powers sitting behind them, and what actually happens in the hours after a police encounter, I put into one short, plain English guide for England and Wales called the Know Your Rights Handbook. There's no hard sell coming. If it'd be useful, the link is in the description below, and everything you need for tonight is right here in this video, for nothing. Now, two questions I get asked every time I talk about this, and both deserve a straight answer. The first is, what if they come in anyway? Then you do not physically stop them. Not with your body, not with the door, not by standing in the way. Whatever the rights and wrongs of it, obstructing an officer at that moment turns a dispute about entry into an allegation about you, and you will lose that exchange even if you were right about everything else. What you do instead is speak, clearly, once, for the recording. I am not consenting to this entry. What power are you entering under? That question is not rudeness, and it is not clever. It is the single most useful sentence available to you, because an officer relying on a real power can name it in 4 words, and an officer relying on your politeness cannot. Whatever answer comes back, including no answer at all, is now on their body-worn video, in their own voice, and it is the first thing any solicitor looking at this afterwards will want to hear. Then let them in, stay calm, say nothing else about your health or your circumstances, and write down everything you can remember the moment they leave. Time, names, collar numbers, what was said and in what order. Memory decays quickly, and a note made that night is worth 10 times a recollection made 3 weeks later. Because here is the part people don't realise. An entry without lawful authority does not stop being unlawful just because it already happened. It becomes a complaint, and in some cases a civil claim for trespass. The evidence for it is made in those first few minutes, by you, out loud, at the moment it is happening. The second question is, who actually called them? Ask. Can I ask who it was that contacted you? Is entirely reasonable, and the answer tells you almost everything about what this visit really is. Often it is a family member who genuinely was worried and rang the police because they didn't know what else to do. And if that is the case, the kindest thing for everybody is to ring that person while the officers are still standing there and let them hear your voice. Sometimes it is a neighbour who heard something through a wall. Occasionally it is somebody making trouble, because a false welfare report is an easy way to send police to a person's door. And there is one more possibility worth knowing about, because it is the reason to ask the question at all. Sometimes a welfare check is being used as a way to have a conversation that would otherwise require a formal process, a look inside, a chance to see who is home, a reason to knock that nobody could object to. That is not an accusation against the officers on your step, who may know nothing about it. It is simply a reason to answer at the door rather than in the front room. Either way, you are entitled to ask, and you are entitled to write the answer down. So, let me play it out so you can hear how short and how unremarkable it is when it goes right. Knock. You go to the door and you open it part way, enough to speak comfortably, not enough to make a corridor. 2 officers. One says, "Evening, sorry to disturb you, we've just come to check you're okay." You say, "I'm absolutely fine, thank you, I'm not inviting you in, but I'm happy to talk here at the door." He says, That's all right. Can I ask, is anybody else in with you? You say, there's nobody here who needs any help. He nods, writes something down, says, no problem at all, we'll let you get on. And that's it. 90 seconds, no confrontation, and nobody crossed your threshold. Compare that with the version I've heard far too many times. The door opens wide. Oh, yes, of course, come in. Sorry about the mess. Then a cup of tea and a conversation in the front room about how long you've lived alone and how you've not been sleeping and whether your daughter is right to worry. Nobody is unkind. Nobody raises their voice. But a visit that had no legal foundation whatsoever has become a record, and a record has a habit of turning into a follow-up. Same house, same two officers, same evening. One sentence between the two outcomes. Now, 3 practical things to have ready before it ever happens. Have a door chain or a spy hole and use them. You are allowed to speak to someone through a partly open door, and there is nothing rude about it. You are also entitled to ask for their names and their collar numbers, and to write them down while they're standing there. Ask what this is actually about. Can I ask who it was that called you is a perfectly reasonable question, and the answer tells you a great deal. Sometimes it's a family member who genuinely was worried and simply misjudged it. Sometimes it's a neighbour who heard something. Occasionally there was no call at all, and if you are able to, record it. You may film police officers carrying out their duties, and doing it openly on your own doorstep is entirely lawful. As one commenter on this channel put it rather better than I could, the moment the police are at your door, record everything. And one last thing about the door itself, because it decides more of this than any sentence does. Answer it, but answer it narrowly. A door opened a foot, with you filling the gap, is a conversation. A door opened wide, with you a pace back, is an invitation. And I have watched that distinction decide cases. If you have a chain, use it. If you have a spy hole, use it first. Nobody has ever been criticised for opening their own front door carefully at night. And do not step outside onto the path to talk either. It feels like the polite compromise, and it is the one move that leaves your open front door behind you, unattended, with 2 officers beside it. Stay on your own side of the threshold. That line is the whole of your protection, and it only works while you are standing on it. So quickly, what to take away? There is no police power of entry for a welfare check. The power they'd have to rely on is Section 17, and that is an emergency power for saving life or limb, not a way of settling a worry. Concern alone is, in the law's own words, altogether too low a test. Do not open the door wide and step back. Do not explain your health, your sleep, or the fact that you live alone. And do not answer the follow-up as though you owe anybody a justification for the inside of your own house. And learn this line the way you know your own address. I'm absolutely fine, thank you. I'm not inviting you in, but I'm happy to talk here at the door. If this helped you, do 2 things for me. Have a look at the pinned comment where I've put that line and the section it comes from, so it's in your pocket long before there's ever a knock. And subscribe, because I take one of these situations apart every week in plain English, so that if it's ever your door on a dark evening, you already understand the rules better than most people ever will. And do me one more kindness. If you know someone who lives on their own, a parent, a neighbour, an old friend, someone who would open that door wide and step back because they were brought up to be polite, send this to them tonight. Politeness is a fine thing. It should not cost anybody the only place in the world where the law is entirely on their side. I'm Oliver Bennett. Stay calm, stay on your side of the door, and I'll see you in the next one.